So now we're going to move on and talk about managing views using view templates. Prior to doing that here, a couple just reminders about some features of views. In particular, something like a detail view for a window. Now I'm going to go into the north elevation here, and for detailing purposes, if you folks want to put some references on one of your elevations, or you want to create the starting points for doing detailing for window heads, jambs, and sills, when you go to use the section tool, if you use the detail type section, so you start the section command and immediately go to the properties palette and choose a detail type section. Detail sections are unique that they allow you to draw the section in any direction. So here I can create this vertical section to create a section through my head, and I can draw it horizontally. I can draw a section horizontally as if I was cutting a section through the jamb. Now you can see right now it's looking upwards. You might want to flip your section so it's looking downwards if that's notionally easier for you to comprehend. So detail type sections have that capability, so when you're doing that detailing process. Now, view templates. So I'm going to go back to the plan view here, and you can see the detail that I just created showed up here in plan. So there it is there. That detail section I created in elevation is showing up in my plans as a callout. It's pretty cool. So the purpose of a view template is twofold, maybe even more than that. The idea behind a view template is so that you can lock down the settings of a view, i.e. the scale of the view, what categories are on and what categories are off, what the level of detail is, all that stuff. So how many times have you folks been working on a project and you put a view onto a sheet, you went and plotted off a quick plot set, and you found out that one of the views in the set was the wrong scale. Somebody changed the scale of the view and it printed off, and you got this little blob in the middle of the sheet, or you've got this crazy view into the middle of the plan and the rest of the plan is like off the edge of the paper, right? Either of those possibilities suck. So to prevent that, you can lock down a view so that its properties cannot be changed. So let's look at that. So here we've got a view that's 1 to 100, medium level of detail. So the furniture's on. So let's say that you're using this setup to create furniture plans. So the furniture's on, everything's set up. So what we can do is we can go to the View tab, and under the View Templates menu, we can create a template from the current view. So under Creating a Template, page 3 of the notes, create a view template from the current view. So I'm going to call this Furniture Plan 1-100. You can't use a colon, and you can't use a divide symbol either. So here you'll notice if I try to put in the divide symbol and hit OK, oh, it did it. Huh. I don't think I can use the colon symbol though. No. Okay, so I've got my Furniture Plan 1-100. So what Revit is doing now is it's allowing you to confirm the settings of this view template. So this is kind of like layer states in AutoCAD, except it's a little bit more powerful because you can control things like the view scale. You can also change the view range. So if you have a particular setting for the view range for whatever reason, this can be built into a view template. Okay, cool, we're done. Hit OK. Now, once a view template has been created, you can decide if you want to associate a view with a template, i.e. lock a view to a template. The process for doing that is to scroll on down to the View Template row in the Properties palette. Now this is why I always tell people, rip the Properties palette off the left-hand side, drag it over until your cursor is on top of the scroll bar so that the toolbar docks. You know, you really need that full height Properties palette to see all the different settings of things in Revit. So scroll on down to the bottom of the Properties palette. You can see here, View Template is none. So this means that this view is not currently locked to a view template. So click where it says none. And now, if you click on the furniture plan, you are now assigning this view template to the view. So now, view template says furniture plan 1. Now look at the rest of the settings in this view. If we go up here, everything is grayed out. This view is now being controlled by the view template. So here, if it says view template and furniture plan 1, now I can click on furniture plan 1, and if I want, I can make changes to the view template now, if I so desire. I'm not going to. Now, Revit will tell you how many views are tied to this template. Right now, just the one. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a copy of the second floor plan. So go and find O2 floor in the project browser, right click on it and duplicate. So we're going to duplicate the view. And in this view, we're going to rename it. So right click on the copied O2 floor plan view and we'll rename it. And we'll call it O2 floor furniture layout. So now that we've made this new floor plan, we can quickly snag all of the settings that are needed to make this a furniture plan. Because what we can do now that this new plan has been created is we can scroll down in its properties here and go and find the view template button. And in the view template settings for our second floor furniture layout plan, we can tie this view as well to the same view template. So all the same settings from that other view template are here. Now there's actually, I don't think there's much furniture on the second floor plan anyway. There might be some on the third floor. Yeah, so there's some furniture on the third floor. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to duplicate the third floor plan, duplicate. And same thing, I'll rename it. Call it the furniture layout. And now I will change this view's settings so it uses the same view template. So now I have 3 plans in the project that are all getting their settings from this same view template. So now in the view template dialog box it says 3 views. Now the really cool thing about this is let's say, hey, you know what, we'd like to print our furniture plans in color with shadows on. Real easy. Because all you have to do now is change the settings in the view template, and all views in the project that are associated with this template will now all have their properties change. So I'm switching from my, I guess it's a model display? No, that's not it. It's, yes. So I'm going to print shaded. So what you got to do is you've got to, once you've made your furniture plan view, go into the properties palette, scroll on down to view template, and hit the view template button. And then in this dialog box on the left, find the furniture plan template that you created earlier and just select it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to change some of the settings of our furniture plan template. So we're going to go to model display, and we're going to switch to shaded mode, so this will show colors. And we're going to enable shadows in a second. We've got to turn on the lighting though. Oh no, can't turn on lighting. That's right. But we can turn on the shading. So shading is enabled. So we can hit OK and hit OK. So now this particular furniture layout, it's using that template. We've changed the template. It's printing in color. What about our other furniture plans? Yep. Happened to them as well. What if we want to hide the floor hatching? See how we've got the hatching of the floors there? I want to turn that off in my furniture plan. No problem. You can get at it two different ways. You can, in your floor plan, go to the View Template button. And in here, you can go find the view overrides for your model and turn off the hatches for floors. That's one way you can do it, get at it. Another way you can get at it is go up to View Templates on the View tab on the ribbon and go to Manage View Templates. So inside the Manage View Templates dialog box, you can find your furniture plan in the list, and same thing. Either way gets you to the same goal. So if I go to my View Template in my properties for the plan, go and find my overrides, my model overrides, and hit Edit. And under my floors, here I've got projection patterns. So here, projection patterns for floors. This cell right here. I want to turn those patterns off. Just turn off all the patterns, the foreground patterns, the background patterns, hit OK, and we've changed the template. So now all of our furniture plans no longer have hatching for the floors. So that's the power. View templates have lots of power to help keep your views organized, and especially if a view has been put onto a sheet, it's really good practice to assign a view template to it so that when someone goes to make a change to the view, they can see it's all grayed out and they're like, oh yeah, this view is on a sheet. I don't want to mess with this. It's even got a view template on it. So it's kind of a bit of a warning to your other colleagues who might not be paying attention that that's important to do. So over to page 4 here. So there's managing view templates. So there's all kinds of things that the view templates can do. Controlling categories that are on and off. Controlling work sets that are on and off, and so on. Now there is an exercise here for views and view templates, which I want you folks to do. I'm going to skip over this. This is something that you folks can do. You won't need any direction from me. It's pretty straightforward. Just go through the steps, do the work, hand those files in next week. I'm going to breeze on ahead because I want to give you folks as much time to work on the exam here tonight as is possible. We're going to move on to dependent views. No, only one template at a time. So you could switch between those two templates. Yeah, absolutely. But only one view can have a template assigned to it at once. You can't assign two view templates to one view. But you can have more than one view template for a view and just switch between them. Yeah. Okay, dependent views, page 5. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to talk about partial plans. Partial plans. So I'm going to open the entry level view, and then on the view tab I'm going to choose close inactive. This is a important command, because if you've got a bazillion tabs open, a bazillion views open in one or more projects, you know, the entire top of your drawing area here can be filled up with tabs. In a worst case scenario, that can actually cause stability problems for your computer. At the very least, it does create a little bit of a confusion problem as you're trying to figure out, you know, which view is from what project. So every once in a while, I just reset everything and I close all my inactive tabs, so it's only the active tabs and the projects that I've got open that are shown above the drawing area. So we're talking about dependent views. Now, if we look at this view on a sheet, so here we've got an A0 size metric sheet. That's a pretty good sized page. Right up there with the 36 by 48 size sheet, so the biggest of the ISO page sizes. And this floor plate is at 1 to 100. Now, in many projects with large floor plates, they will often revert to using partial plans at 1 to 50. So let's talk about that process. That floor plate, which you just saw on the screen at 1 to 100, fits just on an A0 size sheet. So we look at that floor plan at 1 to 100, and there's not a whole lot of extra room at 1 to 100 for an overall plan. But when we get down to doing detailed plans to show the different wall types that are being used, maybe put on our door tags and all that stuff, quite often, firms do that work at 1 to 50. So this thing would be 4 times the size, and there's no way that it would fit on the sheet. So now we start using what's called dependent views. So the idea is that you have a parent view, as it's called. These views are at, say, 1/2 inch to a foot, or 1 to 50. And this parent view will never actually get on a sheet. This parent view will have all the dimensions, all the tags, all the information that's going to go on the partial plans, but it's like it's a master plan of all of these annotations. And then we will create what are called dependent views. And you can have as many of them as you want. Now here's the deal. Parent and all the dependent views share their 2D objects. And that's what makes them special. So, if I've got my big overall 1 to 50 view with all of my dimensions and all my tags, all my notes on it, and it doesn't matter if I put those annotations in all my, in a parent or a dependent view, that's not the point. the idea is that I can take this parent view and I can break it up into these dependent views that allow me to break the master view up into different pieces that will fit on sheets. So the idea is that with the parent view, you're still looking at the overall plan of the building. So in the parent view, do all the annotations that are required. Put all your tags, put all your dimensions, and you've got this global view of everything so you can see if you've missed anything. Now, when you come to putting it on a sheet, you right-click on the parent view, and you create your dependent, your dependent views. These are all going to be partial plans. So this is an overall and NIS, not in, no, I'll say NOS, not on sheets. This overall parent view never fits on a sheet. And each one of these is a partial plan that will go on a sheet. And you can adjust the boundaries to suit. Now, if you've ever done partial plans in AutoCAD, what tends to happen is that people tend to miss some of the annotations on the boundaries between two partial plans. Right? They do it with X-Reps or something like that. And they put in something annotation and they just miss the bus. They forget some annotations. But the idea with this parent view of Revit is that you can see everything in the plan and just annotate the living snot out of it. Just everything. Get it all in there. And then your partial plans and your dependent views, just adjust the boundaries to suit. You can even have some overlap, right? So one part of one plan might overlap part of another. So you don't miss anything. So let's do it. So in this same project, if you folks want to go up and find the entry-level plan, we're going to duplicate it with detailing. So this means we are copying the 2D objects in this view. So we're taking all the dimensions and all the text and tags that are here, we're duplicating it with detailing. So right now, it's a 1:100 plan. Let's change its scale to 1:50. So this is going to be our partial plan. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to rename this view now. Instead of copy 1, I'm going to rename it. And I'm going to call it 1-50. Again, because I can't use the colon in the view name. So here, if I go back and try and put a colon in there, it blows me off. So whatever. So my entry-level plan, 1:50. This won't fit on a sheet. It's way too big. So we've got our parent view now. So now we can right-click on it, and we can say duplicate view as a dependent. Oh, it's because you've had a view template tied to it. So go down to your view template and switch it to none. So we're working with the 01 entry-level view. We right-clicked and made a copy of that, duplicated with detailing initially, so we can bring all the annotations over from the original 01 entry-level plan. And then the copy of it, we change its scale to 1:50. So this is our parent view. So folks, right-click on our 1:50 plan and make 3 dependent views: a north, a west, and a south. Now, you may or may not have noticed, if you right-click on the parent and you choose duplicate as dependent, or if you right-click on one of the already created dependent views and you say duplicate as dependent, they both do the same thing, which is to say that once you have your parent view, you can only create a single generation of child views. So I can't right-click on one of the child views and say make dependent and make sort of another folder of dependent views underneath the parent. So you only get one generation. You get parent and then child views. Now that you've created your north, south, and west, we can now adjust the crop regions around them to reflect the zones that we're talking about. So here's my south view. I'm going to grab my crop region here, and you need to grab the model crop. That's the inner dot, and pull it down so it's just looking at the south part of the building here. And adjust your west and north views accordingly. Now, once you've set the boundaries for all of your child views, have a look in the parent view. I need to turn on the crop region here. So here's my... So the parent view has its own crop region, which actually we really don't need, so I'm going to disable it. And I'm going to hide it. Hey, no, I don't want to. Okay. So in my parent view, you folks can see that it shows the crop regions of all of the dependent views. So in your parent view, you can control the crop regions of all the child views. So you can control the amount of overlap between two adjacent dependent plan views. Cool thing. So for these big floor plates, it allows you to ensure that you've got enough overlap between those two plan views that when the contractor is flipping between sheets, that they're for sure going to get all the, door and wall and other tags, at least twice in some places, and that no annotations are going to get missed. So again, this parent view, it's going to look at your overall view. You can see everything. Make sure all the annotations are in there. You can see the crop regions of all the dependent views, but only the dependent views go on sheets. Yes?
How do we draw those match lines?
Match lines?
Yeah.
Between the two. Go to YouTube for that. They've got help here too. For match lines, folks, between two views, the software has a match line annotation that you can put in there, and it actually will show the two view names on each side. So you folks know when you put a section across your plan. It gives you the view number that's there. On the view tab, is it here? There it is. Here's the view reference right here. I don't want to get into it right now, but this will give you the annotation, and now what you can do when you place it on the plan, it will allow you to indicate what the next view up is. So again, I don't have time to get into that tonight, but that's the purpose of that annotation, and of course works in conjunction with your dependent views. So it's a related feature. These things here? No, that's the actual crop region from that dependent view. They're not what? Oh, do they print? I don't think they do. Let's just check in the print preview dialog box here. No, they don't print. What happens if which? It may mean that your crop regions are turned off at the bottom. So look for the little light bulb on the crop region icon. So you're, okay, I'll have to come and see. All right, so the next thing we're going to talk about here, folks, on page 6, scope boxes. So what a scope box does is it's meant to help you organize the datums in your project, your grids, your levels. So let's say that you have a building that has a podium on the bottom, and then it's got a tower project on the top. Like that. So you've got some levels that are associated with the podium. And then of course you've got a bunch of levels that are associated with the tower. Now, scope boxes are meant to give you control over your views. It's like a way of quickly setting up a crop region for a floor plan. And they are a way for limiting the 3D endpoints of your levels and grids. So you guys remember from the intro course, when we have a level or a grid, when you click on the end dot, you'd see in blue 3D or 2D at the end of a grid or level. So that's something from the intro course. So what we can do is we can define certain volumes within our project, within which our datums are relevant. So you might have some both levels and grids that relate just to the tower and relate just to the podium. So these scope boxes, they're a rectangular volume and they're dashed and they don't print, and they show up in plans and in 3D and in section. And you just stretch these scope boxes so that they go around the relevant parts of your project. So here I might have a scope box for the podium and a scope box for the tower. So you can have your plans so that they follow the shape of the podium, the crop region, and you can set it up so your levels and grids stop at So I'm going to put one of these scope boxes in this view. So on the View tab, you will find Scope Box. View tab, Scope Box. So you just draw a rectangle around the part of the project that the scope box relates to. So I'm going to call this scope box north because it relates to the north part of my building here. And if after we place the scope box, so again it's on the View tab, and over in the middle here, there's your scope box command. And if I go to 3D now, there's the scope box right here. So you folks can see it. I'll do a hidden line here so it's a little easier to see. So there's that green dashed box right there. So typically what I do is make sure that it includes the foundations for the part of the building and goes up above the roof. So now let's look at what scope boxes can do. I'm going to go into the north elevation. And I guess the scope box isn't turned on in this view. Let's just see here. I think it's under the annotation categories here, scope boxes. No, it's on. It should be here. Not sure why it's not appearing. It might be that the scope box is larger than my crop for the view, so if I disable the crop, yeah, don't know. Not sure why I'm not seeing it. It doesn't matter though. So in my north elevation here, I'm going to pick one of my datums. So here, one of these grids. So you can associate your levels and your grids with a scope box. So if I associate grid line 9 with my scope box, which I just created, my north scope box, oh, well, that's interesting. Did I pick the wrong view? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I did. See? There's my grid line 9. Ah, this is great. My scope box over here, see this? It isn't even, it doesn't come anywhere near grid line 9. So I was trying to associate grid line 9 with that scope box. Not possible, but I could associate grid 6 with that scope box. So if I go back to my north elevation, oh, of course, because that's way in the background, right? Couldn't tell. 6. There we go. Now what's happened here is that my elevation isn't looking deep enough to see where grid line 6 exists in the plan. I'd need to make my elevation look a little bit deeper into the project. So let's just make this scope box here a little bit bigger. So the scope box needs to be able to be in the same area as my elevation tag. So there's grid 6 right here. So now you can see the 3D endpoints of the grid stop at the scope box. So for something like the podium, this would keep these grids from going any higher than this scope box. So if you're cutting a section through the site, or if you're looking at one of the floor plans on the upper part of this tower, these grids would never appear in the upper floor plans of the tower, but they would in the lower floor plans here, because for these lower floor plans in the tower, they're low enough that they're inside the podium's scope box. So those levels and grids can be associated with the scope box, so they kind of stay within it. The other thing that we can do is we can associate views with scope boxes. So for my north plan here, I can associate this plan view with a scope box. So it's like an automatic crop region. So by doing that, there's my north scope box. And you notice that when I click on the crop region, there's no dots for adjusting the crop region, because now the crop region of this view is being driven by the size of my scope box. So the nice thing about using a scope box for controlling your crop region for multiple views is that now you can have a whole bunch of floor plans that have exactly the same crop region as defined by the size of the scope box. And if you change the size of your scope box, then you've got all of those floor plans whose crop regions will now follow the newly sized shape of this scope box. One more thing and then we'll move on. Just going to start a new project here. Okay, so here's another reason why I like using scope boxes, and they're really great for buildings that have an angled wing. So let's say that I have a scope box here, so let me just add a scope box for my north wing. What if I'd like to make a plan view of this wing where the view itself is aligned with the rotation angle of this wing? No problem. Grab your scope box and rotate it so that the angle of the scope box is aligned with that wing of the building. So just grab your scope box and then rotate it so it matches the angle of your wing. So now, if I associate a view with scope box 1, so here's my copied view, and if I associate this view with that scope box, look what happens. It rotates the view to align with the scope box. Pretty handy stuff. Now, again, this is kind of a specialized thing, and it's needed when, only needed when you have a building that's got a rotated wing on it, but it's definitely handy stuff. Okay, let's move on to page 7 with filters. No, a good question. So folks, what happens if there's text in there? Well, what will happen is if in this copied floor plan, the text would just be aligned with the view, right? So it's not going to make your text go in weird angles. It's still, as you put in text in this view, it's going to be aligned with the screen. Yeah. How about room tags? If you put a room tag in here, same thing. So if I put a room in here, see, the room tag is aligned with the drawing area. If I put that room tag in my other plan here, it aligns with that screen. So what a scope box does is it kind of creates a new rotation or a new alignment for that particular view only. So again, if you've got an angled wing, just put that scope box in there and you're good to go. All right, filters. Yes. Yeah, so you could put a scope box in and rotate it for a dependent view. Absolutely. In fact, there's some really dirty tricks that you can do with these scope boxes, and I should warn you about it just so you understand what these things can do. This is the power of the dark side. It's Halloween. Let's take a scope box and rotate it 180 degrees. What does that do to a view that's using that scope box as it's associated with the plan? There's my north view. Flips it upside down. That's the north view. And because this dependent view was associated with that scope box, I took that scope box and I rotated it 180 degrees, that also rotated the floor plan 180 degrees. If I take this scope box and I rotate it 20 degrees, that is also going to rotate a floor plan. So just keep that in mind. Rotate a scope box, and if there's a view that is linked to that scope box, there it is right there. So every plan view, every ceiling plan view can be associated with a scope box. And also that scope box's rotation. Okay, so filters. So I'm just going to go back to the entry-level floor plan here, and we'll talk about filters. What filters are designed to do is very similar to the quick select command in AutoCAD. It allows you to find a bunch of objects that meet certain criteria. Now, for those of you who have to ensure that you are providing the appropriate fire ratings in the appropriate locations in floor plans. So if you want to make sure that you're maintaining a 45-minute fire rating for a public corridor, and you need to be able to very quickly see everywhere on a plan that a 45-minute fire rating is being provided alongside of your public corridors, or you want to ensure that you're providing a 1-hour rating between suites, this next step is for you. So, filters. How do we create them? So if we go to the View tab, filters. So the idea with filters is that we establish the criteria that meets the need that we're after. So, generally speaking, these are a rule-based filter. So we're going to create a new filter here, and we're going to call it Walls 1 hour rated. So here's our new rule. Walls 1 hour rated. So this is going to allow us to look for and select 1 hour rated walls. And what we're going to do is we're going to make them appear with a certain color so that we can see on our plans where these 1 hour rated walls are. So now we choose which category it applies to. Now, how did it know that I was wanting to choose walls?
Because it's
Yeah, I know, but I didn't choose walls to begin with. Maybe it's just, it does that as a default. Yeah, that's kind of freaking me out. It's like when Google listens to you at home, you know, and all of a sudden your search results, and in the shopping, it's like all the stuff that you've just been talking about with your spouse, like the previous day. It's like, ooh, my phone's listening to me. So Revit's now listening to me. I guess it was inevitable. So you choose the category that it relates to. So in this case, yes, it is walls and none of the others. So yay, walls. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add a rule. Now I guess we've already got a rule here. So this is the deal. We're searching for the thing that we're talking about. So in this case, it is. I went to rule base and I hit to the bottom down here where it says new. Okay, and then did you get walls? And then you just go over to the next step here and you choose walls and then fire rating. Fire rating. So now what do we want to say? We want to say the fire rating equals, and here 1 hour, 1 HR. So if the wall's fire rating equals 1 HR, then it's a hit. It's a match. We got it. Great. Yes. Someone who's 10 minutes ahead of her time. That's awesome. And this is the thing. It is case sensitive, and it also pays attention to whether there's a space between the 1 and the H or not. So we're going to address that. So go ahead and hit OK. Filter's been created. So once a filter's been created, you have to add it to a view. So the filter is still there and it exists. So if you go back into the filters dialog box, there's the filter right there. So this filter looks for walls that have a fire rating that equals 1 space capital H capital R. Revit is not smart enough to know that a wall has a ULC listing and gives it a 1 hour rating. What Revit is smart enough to do, or maybe stupid enough, is to recognize when you type in 1 space capital H capital R to indicate that a wall has a 1 hour rating, as opposed to a wall that has a 1 no space capital H capital R. So what I'm saying is you're going to have to be disciplined. If it's a 1 hour rated wall, always spell it this way. So let's go look at one of the walls along the corridor here. So grab a corridor wall. So what we want to do is give this thing now a 1 hour rating. Click the wall, go to its type properties. Go and find its fire rating. So there it is there, fire rating. And there hasn't been a fire rating added yet for this wall type. Match the spelling and the case. 1 space capital H capital R. Great. That'll be a match. So even if I did this, wouldn't match. Your filter must exactly match the properties and the spelling of such things in your wall. So there we go. So that's the next step. So now we have a bunch of walls that have 1 space capital H capital R as their fire rating. So the last step is to go to the visibility settings for the view. VV. So in this view, go to the filters tab, and what we need to do is add that filter we created earlier to this view. So go to add, and there's our walls 1 hour rated. So once it's selected, you can hit OK. And if we just hit OK now, nothing would change. What this filter now does is allows us to give the opportunity to create a graphic override for objects that meet this criteria so that we can clearly see them in the view. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the cut patterns to solid yellow so that we can see all the walls in the view that are 1 space capital H capital R. So, if we have objects in this view that match the criteria of this filter, this is the graphic override that it will be given. And there we go. So now you can quickly see all the different walls in the project that have a 1 hour rating. How about our stairwell wall? Let's give it a 2 hour rating. So go to your stairwell wall, click it, go to its type properties, find its fire rating, and now if it was going to be 1 hour rated, you folks would notice that as soon as you go to the fire rating field and you hit the down arrow beside it, 1 HR is already there. It's there from the other wall type. Revit records that and kind of gives it to you if you wanted to, you know, reuse it again, right? So it just grabs it from the other wall type, and if it okay now these walls would all be yellow. But what I want to do now is make this a 2 hour rated wall. So I go down here, instead of 1 space capital H capital R, I'm putting in 2 space capital H capital R. No change in color yet. We have to add the filter, and then we have to add the graphic override. And we can actually do that one-stop shopping in the visibility dialog, VV. So here we can add the filter and the override all at once. Filters tab. So now we can go to Edit New here to create a new filter. So in the visibility dialog box, having added 2 space HR to this wall type's fire rating, I want to go to Edit New here, and we're making a new rating. Walls 2 HR rated. And again, we want to make sure that this only applies to walls, so I go down to walls and hit the checkbox. So this filter, again, it's looking only at walls. You could make it look at floors as well, so it could be a filter that catches walls, floors, and ceilings and roofs all at once that are 2 hour rated. Now look at this. When I go into the rules section here and I choose by the fire rating parameter and I say equals, where did it get this from? It got it from the wall type. So you don't have to type it in again. This helps you avoid making mistakes when you create the filters. So the filter will look at all the different fire rating values that somebody's typed into the project so far. So when you're creating the filter in the dialog box here, it'll have that ready to go for you. And if you see 2HR in uppercase and 2 in lowercase HR, then you know you've got to go find a wall type that has that inconsistent casing of the letters and fix that up. Because you don't want to make, you know, different filters for all the different misspellings of the fire rating description that you've put in. So there we go. 2 hour rated is for walls where the fire rating equals 2 hours. Hit OK. Filter's been created. Now we can hit Add and add 2 hour rated walls and change the cut pattern so we can override it so that it is solid red. There. So now all the walls that have 2HR in there, we can see where our 2 hour rated walls are and our 1 hour rated walls are. So let's say that we want to go up to second floor, and we'd like to do that here. So you'd have to add those same rules to this view. Or you can make a view template of the first floor. Right? So here I could go back to this view and I could say to view templates, create a template from the current view and call it code check floor plan. So all the work that I've done here for setting up the filters and adding them to the view and doing the graphic overrides, you can bake that into a new view template that you can now put and add onto each one of your floor plans for doing your code checking. And then at the end, use another view template to turn off the colors. So it's a really quick way to turn that stuff on and off. And there's all kinds of applications for filters, which you can look at on page 8. But we won't do that now. We're going to move on to advanced scheduling here, but I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time with it. I'm just going to discuss the purpose of advanced scheduling here, and I'm going to give the rest of the time for the quiz for tonight. So page 9 here. So for those of you folks who are working on door schedules on very large buildings, and if you guys are wondering why I'm talking really loud, it's so the microphone on my laptop can pick it up. So I'm not yelling at you, I'm yelling at my laptop. So on projects with very large schedules, very large door schedules, you can run into situations where the door schedule doesn't completely fit on one sheet. So the purpose of filtering a door schedule is usually to limit the number of doors in the schedule so that you can make that schedule fit onto a single sheet. So the best practices for door schedules in a situation like this So if you have a project where you do need to break up your door schedules so that they're maybe story by story, or maybe the first 5 stories and then the next 5 stories of the door schedule is you should have a master schedule. And this is kind of like the parent view, right? The parent view doesn't fit on a sheet because it's too big. So you're going to have a master schedule that's not filtered. It's got every single door on the project. This master door schedule, say, wouldn't go on a sheet, but it would list every single door to make sure that no doors are missed. That way you can scroll through that door schedule and you can confirm the settings of all the different doors in the schedule. So then, duplicate that schedule. So this is our master schedule. Duplicate the master schedule and add the filters. So add the filters as necessary to limit the number of objects in the schedule so that nothing gets missed. So you can have a parkade door schedule, and then you can have an above ground door schedule. So there's lots of different ways to filter your schedules, but that's, you know, sort of a common breakdown for schedules. The other thing that I do want to note on page 10 is if you're doing door hardware schedules. So for projects where the hardware requirements of the doors are important and where a very specific combination of door hardware is required, go to YouTube and just for a search term there, put in Revit door hardware schedule, and you can see how these special kinds of schedules are set up. They're called a key schedule, and at the top of page 10 you can see this is the door schedule here, where instead of actually scheduling doors, you're creating what's called a key schedule, and there's lots of stuff on YouTube and out there on Google that explains what these key schedules are and how they're used with door hardware schedules plugging into the regular door schedule. Next week, I will take a few moments to talk about the construction assembly tags. At the end of today's notes, there's talking about how to customize the project browser. So if you've got a really big project, customizing the project browser will allow you to create your own folders and a list of all of your views, so you can, say, separate your development permit plans from your building permit plans. And so what that will allow you to do is keep your building permit set separate from your development permit set, and so those development permit plans would, you know, stay for the entire life of the project, and you can create new plans for the building permit and construction documents as necessary. Okay, so from here, let's talk about how you get into tonight's quiz. So if you want to hop on to the browser here, and you go to learn.bcit.ca, and then log in with your BCIT student number and your password, and sign in. So once you sign in, you need to go down and find down here, find our course number. For some of you, it'll be 46463. For some others of you, it'll be 36581. So whichever one it is for you, go ahead and choose it. And then at the top, choose activities, and then quizzes. And then pick the quiz here and get going. So you can see that you've got until November 8 next week, which I believe is a Friday, to complete the second attempt on the quiz. So you folks can do one attempt tonight here, and you can do a second attempt later. In fact, if you folks want to skedaddle, you don't even have to stay here. You can stay here and do the first quiz, or you folks can call it a day and go home. It's up to you. You can do it here, or you can do it somewhere else. So you can start one attempt here and then finish it off at home and submit it, or whatever works for you. Okay? Nope, first attempt could be any time. You just have to submit your 2 attempts by whatever that is, November 8th at 7:42 p.m. All right, so that's it. No, you can submit one, and if you feel like you could do it better a second time, have at it.